Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome to the Direct Input Feed Brief Showcase. Now the story behind today's video is I woke up, I got on with my day, and then I looked at my channel and realized, oh, it's been a while since I've done a video, naughty me. And I didn't feel like doing anything complicated, so today we're gonna talk about something that I quite like. This is one of my favorite things to do with advanced cannons in From the Depths, and that is diff guns, or direct input feeders. And coincidentally, diff is a great onomatopoeia for the sound they make when they fire. It's very nice. So for those of you who do not know what a diff gun is, it is an advanced cannon with no autoloaders and no clips. It is just the firing piece, ammo inputs, and gauge increases, and the mantlets and the barrels, which you kind of need no matter what. So, why are these things good? Why do I like them? Well, I've just rigged up three different ones here, from small to medium to large, just to kind of show off like what's good about them, what's bad about them. And the pro side, you might have noticed, these things are, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. These are quite small, so they're very small, they're very cheap, and they're simple to make, so Tetris is not really an issue with these weapons. And they're just really simple. Like, I made these two right here I made both of them within about 10 minutes. They are not hard to make. It's absolutely fantastic. In fact, like, really, this is how you make one. It's first get a little scaffold set up. Boom, boom. And, advanced firing piece. Ammo input feeders, I tend to use 4, you can go lower than that, and that's the basis of it. And you add gauge increases, and possibly a mantlet if you want one. Let's just stick that one on, and dun dun dun, and just quickly chuck an ammunition on there. And there you go, this is a functional little gun. So, we go here. Quite a big one, actually. Bigger than I meant to do. But in any case, that was, what, a few seconds, and I made a little gun like that, so that's one of the reasons I love these things, is because they're very simple to make. They don't require much brain power, so just whenever I'm playing From the Depths and I don't feel like making anything complicated, I just make these. So nice. Let's hop back into the chair. And so, these guns right here, like, I know your attention's probably been grabbed by this massive, stupid thing over here, which coincidentally is a gun that I've recycled from an earlier video, the video about turrets on turrets. But it's back again because, well, it's a good example of like some of the wacky things you can do with these direct input feeds. But we'll start with this one. This is possibly the most sensible kind of direct input feeder you can have, because it's very small, and it's like a very small gauge as well. It's on a little 2-axis turret. It can point almost straight up. It's got a bit of a bum on it, so let's get rid of this, actually. And this should be able to point, whoops, almost all the way up, like that.
Weapons only.
So this is, yeah, so what works at this level of gun? So APS is a bit of a complicated thing. So from small guns, what the ammunition usually want to use is either pure kinetic shells or frag, and this one is loaded. Well, I'll show you on the actual shell itself. Right here, you have this kind of all-purpose kinetic shell. It's just AP capped head, apparently the best for this kind of thing because it's you get maximized kinetic damage right here. Saber warhead body, so you get armor pierce. Base bleeder for just a bit of extra speed and range, and lots of gunpowder casings. It's nothing amazing, it's nothing incredibly outlandish, but it works reasonably well. So fast little shells, and the damage output isn't amazing, but as you can see, that's a tiny, tiny little gun, and it's still knocking holes in this Marauder right here. And the rate of fire isn't terrible, like, considering how much this gun costs. Oh my goodness. Hold the phone, that's my mother. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. That was my dad, and he wants my car. And he's welcome to have it. Because goodness knows it's actually his car. I just forgot what I was talking about. Oh well, no, here we go. Here we go. What we were talking about is this little gun. Oh yeah, so the other great thing about this particular type of direct input feeder is that, well, it's tiny, and you can stick it all over the place. So you can stick here, and it's so cheap. It is less than 400 materials, and just... So there's like 5 in a row, all right there. The 4 I've just placed don't have any local weapon controllers, so they can't fire, but that's okay, because the point is made. And if you're wondering what kind of craft in the game already uses this kind of thing, one of them is... I can show you right now, as a matter of fact, so... One of my favorites is the... SpaghettiOs. Let's not do that. I was half hoping the Thunderclap could shoot the Marauder to death, but alas, that's not to be. The Thunderclap. So the Thunderclap is one of my favorites for a number of reasons. For one thing, it flies. And for another, it's covered in crams, but it also has more than a few little direct input feeders on it. That's not one, because that has clips. But here we have these little things that are very, very similar to the ones I'm showing off on my platform. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 on this side, so 12 in total. So yeah, it's got lots of them. And I believe these all have either direct input, or what gauge are these? 72 millimeters. And the ammo is just little hollow points by the looks of it. So, again, little kinetic gun. Very nice. I just love the look of this thing in general. It's not as formidable as it looks, I have to say. Like, this is not the most dangerous Great Talon craft by a long shot, but it does have a stupid amount of guns on it, which I seem to like. I tend to do better with guns that have lots of guns on them. So, Thunderclap, you go away, because we're done with you. So, tiny little diff gun, really good. Once you start moving up the size, these guns are somewhat less effective because the firing rate drops a lot, and the cooldown also ramps up a bit. This is a just 236mm frag gun, again direct input feeder, and it's not as universally helpful. So if we go here and we spawn in our friend the Marauder,
turning on.
Over there it is. And we turn on our friend here.
Only.
I also should mention that I've got traces turned down to minimum, simply because, well, I like the way it looks. So this has, for a 200mm gun, this is a very slow rate of fire. Ideally, what usually works with this is 1 to 2 meter shells, possibly belt feeders, that kind of thing. And particular smoke guns tend to be at this range. Like, you can also get away with, like, pure kinetic shells, but less handy. So in any case, this is just kind of a spare deck gun. You don't have to have the whole thing, like, above deck, as I've done right here. You can sink it into the hull. It's long enough for that. But, yeah, I've just done it like this because I was in a hurry, and frankly, like, this just, a part of me just still likes deck guns. Just, like, guns right on the deck. They don't take up much room. There's space on the deck. And this thing doesn't do terribly bad damage. Again, this, it's quite cheap for what it is. It's just over 1,000 materials, and most of that is just the alloy I've covered it with. If you actually make one of these properly and sink most of it below the deck, it'll be even cheaper, so that's worth noting. And all the while I've been talking, it's put nice little holes right through the Marauder, which is made entirely of wood. But still worth noting. Like, yeah, you can get away with these, especially if you use lots of them. So I'll get to that in a second, but the main idea with using direct input feeders, if you want to use them as your main weapon, well, firstly, don't. It's not a particularly good idea, and I know because I do it all the time, is that you volley fire them. That's one of the reasons I like them, is because I'm a cram gunner at heart, And I like big volleys of slow-firing weapons. I don't know why. It's more satisfying to me. I know, that's my personal preference. It's weird. This is a game in which you are meant to fire fast, especially guns like this. This is a niche use of APS. But while I'm on that topic, the way you calculate how fast a direct input feeder can fire is firstly make sure you've got enough coolers. Thankfully you don't need many because as of the big patch that brought in ACBs, the base cooling rate for advanced cannons is quite high, so you don't need nearly as many cooling units as you used to in order to make these guns useful, so they can be a lot smaller, which is fantastic. I remember talking about that. And so if you just divide the number there, so in this case 24.6 seconds, that's the amount of time for a shell to get to this input feeder, you divide that by the number of feeders. So that's 24.6 divided by 4, which is about 5. And then you divide 60 by 5, which is 12, I believe. So what have I done here? I put 10. My math is terrible. Like, I know what I probably just said is wrong. Bear with me. Because, like, I'm distracted by the lovely gun that's firing. But in any case, that is the basic way. Apparently, the math doesn't quite work out that way. And I'm not sure why, but I'm not particularly bothered by it. Because, well, the result is close enough for me. And this is where all the obsessive-compulsive people in the audience start frothing at the mouth. However, so that's that little gun, little medium-sized thing, and then you get to this ridiculous thing over here, the recycled pseudo-flat cannon that I made ages ago. So these are 402mm advanced cannons, and they are hollow point frag. For no particular reason, then I find this shell type kind of fun. Yeah, so 400mm shells. Arguably, frag isn't the best idea to use on them. This is roughly around 300mm is where you want to start using high explosive instead of fragment. But frags can do decently at almost any gauge size, so they do okay. Possibly not optimally, but okay. And I just like the idea of hollow point frag. It's like smash, splinter, boom, crunch. I'm very eloquent, shut up. So these are essentially two different kinds of turrets. You have that main turret in the middle, and you have two of these very outdated kind of turrets that I refer to as slappers, just because I slap them down on decks whenever I need them. And this is not an efficient arrangement. It is expensive, it's tall, it's bulky, this is a fun gun. So if we do this, and we show off how much this costs, this is 7,000 materials, which arguably could be spent on autoloaders instead. So, not entirely worth it, but my goodness, it is fun to have 4 guns fire like that. And a lot of them missed, but some of them didn't. And yeah, against wooden targets in particular, they hurt like hell. So let's give it a better target. What has decent armor? Let's have Jormungand. Is it going to be facing the right way?
Turning off.
I do like the Jormungand, it's fun. It is not facing the right way, but I don't mind. So, it fires. And there's some decent chunks taken out. That's just 4 shells did that. And this thing has a pretty terrible... Well, it's not terrible, but it's not good either. So, roughly 6-second cooldown. And 53 divided by 4 is roughly 4 or 5 shots a minute, which isn't great. By real-world standards, that's fantastic for such a big gun, but from the depth case, not so much. So, really, this is like kind of secondary weapon material. Because, as I said before, they're small, cheap, you can stick them anywhere. Except for this one. This one's kind of silly. And speaking of silly, this is not as crazy as you can get with direct input feeders, because as I mentioned before, if you really want to use them as your main weapon, and again, don't do that, I found out the hard way that that's not as efficient and effective as it could be, what you do is you do something like this. So let's spawn in a big annoying target. So let's have... user. Bulwarks are fun. Bulwarks are fun to shoot at. Not the best crash test dummy, I have to say, because armor is rather weird. And by that, I mean it's rather thin in places. But that's the Onyx Watch all over, really, is that their armor is weirdly thin, and it's mostly because there's so much empty space in them that they're so tough to kill. I'm getting off target, so this is something I was working on just the other day, and it is very, very silly. And if I ever make a craft that has this kind of armament, it's gonna... there's just the whole thing's gonna be very silly. This is 500mm direct input feeders. There's... how many of these are there? Like, there's 12 main ones, which some of them are hash and some of them are heat. There's 4 disruptor guns, and then there's 2 smoke guns, which are not direct input feeders. They have autoloaders in them. And I know some people cry. Well, they don't cry, but it's just not as efficient to have pure autoloaders. Like, you stick a clip in there, it'll be a better rate of fire. Whatever. It's these do the job. So this is a completely stupid gun arrangement, because for this cost, you could very easily make just 1 or 2 guns with autoloaders and clips that have a much better rate of fire and higher damage per second, and damage per minute, and fire per minute, and fire per second. But I like this simply because, I don't know why, it just likes... I like how they look, I like how they feel. Damage is rubbish, but look at this volley. Should have shown off what kind of shells we're using. So, damage isn't fantastic, but it's already taken a chunk out of this heavy armored thing here. So again, not an amazing rate of fire, but those are big, slow shells. So I think of them as baby hash, and see, that volley, it really depends on where the volley hits. So yeah, this is possible to do with direct input feeders. Just, well... did that destroy anything important? I don't think so. And really, you do have to, in order to use direct input feeders well, you do have to really maximize the effectiveness of what shells you're using. Hello, what's your health now? Admittedly, we are tearing through this bulwark reasonably fast. I say reasonably fast. It's, again, properly made advanced cannon. Just with autoloaders, we'll be doing this a lot faster. Okay, that looked painful. Hello, sir. Are you alive in here? Bulwark has very heavily armored turrets, I do have to say. So I should probably show you over here what kind of shells this thing is rocking. This, I believe, is the smoke gun. Ignore the color. That's the kind of smoke warhead used. This is the squash head, and the way I've set this up is that it's more like a high explosive frag shell with a bit of hash flavor, because the special effect is set quite low. Frag angle is set to 90, good compromise between damage and spread, and shape charge is similar story. It is heat flavored high explosive and frag. So this is a pretty... high explosive frag is a pretty meta shell. It does well in most instances. And this is the disruptor shell. This is about as bog standard as you can get. It is a disruptor conduit, EMP, and a stabilizer fin to get rid of the inaccuracy penalty that this has. Or rather, Disruptor's warheads are really inaccurate. That helps correct for that. And they're also slow, and base speeders help correct for that. So, that's the shells. They're just simple, get the job done. Jeez, that's loud. How's the bulwark doing? Not great. We have currently eaten the side of this thing up a bit. So yeah, direct input feeders. I quite like them. They're quite fun. And yeah, I just like how... whee! Having short traces actually makes them look faster. Don't know why that is. Fire for me, baby. Not just you, all of you. Wait for it. Wait for it. Yeah, there we go. Smoking's bad for you, especially if you eat gun smoke. What's going on here? Hey! Beautiful. Right, so that is my short, rather silly video on direct input feeders. Like, there's not much to say about them, really. They're small, cheap, simple, lousy rate of fire and DPS, but they're very easy to make. I love using them for that very reason. So, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Oh dear, that looked... What got shot off here? Sorry, let's just quickly check. I think a turret got popped somewhere. Somewhere! Possibly this one. Where was I? Ah, yes. Farewell! Happy December, holiday, whatever have you.